Welcome to the norming video for 3rd grade science constructed response for CA1. To get started, you're going to want to have open the exemplar response that is posted on Blackboard, and you'll also want to have open the constructed response rubric. To get started, question number 1 asks scholars to use the data to draw a graph. You can see that constructed response question 1 is worth a total of 15 points. This is an example of what the graph could look like, and this is also an example of what the graph could look like. Down below you see the exact rubric. As you can see, for a graph, for example, they can't be awarded 4 points or 3 points, but they can be awarded between 0 and 2 points. They should be awarded 2 points if they draw an appropriate bar or line graph. If they try to graph something but it's incorrect, they get a 1. And if they don't graph anything, it's a 0. That's how you read this table below. Let's take a look at the exemplar. There's a few examples for the title, but the most important thing to remember is that both the independent and the dependent variable should be included. In this case, it's the temperature and the day of the week. Over here, you can see that there are headings on both axes. For these, they must include the units. They must include a scale that is appropriate, such as counting by 2s, not 10s, not 100s, because this is only up to 10, the data. Let's go back to the table over here. So for the axes, they can be awarded between 0 and 4 points. If they graph both the horizontal and the vertical axes correctly, they get 4 points, as noted here. You can also take a look and see what the exemplar looks like on both of the examples. If the horizontal axis is labeled day and the vertical is labeled temperature, but there are no units, they should get 3 points. If the axes are labeled and the unit is written, but the axes are maybe reversed with the temperature down at the bottom and the day on the side, they would get 2 points. If the axes are reversed, labeled totally, and there's no units, they would get 1 point. And if the axes are not labeled at all, they would get 0 points. The scale refers to the numbers that are listed on the side here and here. If it's an appropriate scale, they get 2 points. If the scaling is off, they receive 1 point. Or if it's just unevenly spaced, they get 1 point. And if there is no scale at all, they get 0 points. For the data that they include in the middle, they can receive between 0 and 4 points. If they graph it correctly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for all 5, they get 4 points. If they leave 1 off, it's not graphed correctly, it's down to 3 points, 2 points. And then if they graph it correctly for 1 or 2, they only get 1 point for that. But if they don't graph it correctly at all, they get 0 points. Lastly, for the title, they can get between 0 and 3 points. If it includes the independent and dependent variable like we talked about a moment ago, and it's a suitable title, they get the 3 points. If the title is present but you can't tell the independent or dependent variable, they get 2 points. If they write a title but it's a little bit irrelevant, maybe they name it for example, then they would get 1 point, and then if there's no title given, they get 0 points. If you add up all of the points, it should be between 0 and 15 total possible points. Question number 2 is only worth a total of 5 points. It asks scholars to take a look at what 2 scholars did to set up an experiment and then to analyze that and decide who did the best job. For part A, it asks them, did Michael or Carmen have the best setup? The correct answer would be Carmen had the best setup. They get 0 points for putting Michael, or if they just leave it blank. Part B asks if they chose Michael, why they think he had the best setup, and if they chose Carmen, why they think she had the best setup. If they chose Michael for Part A, they get 0 points for Part B, because they will explain how Michael had the best setup, which Michael did not have the best setup. They get 1 point awarded if they explain that Carmen varied the amount of sunlight. Something regarding the sun. It doesn't have to be sunlight explicitly. They can also write the amount of sun the plant got, something along those lines. They get another additional point awarded if the scholar explains that Carmen kept the amount of water the same, that she had a controlled variable in the experiment. So something along the lines of water in the pots were identical, similar, the same. They kept the water the same across the pots. And then lastly, they get an additional point if they explain that Carmen kept the temperature of the environment the same. For Part C, they're asked to look at the scholar they did not choose for Part A, so it should be Michael. What do you think affected the plant growth from this setup? The scholar should mention that the temperature affects plant growth, or something with those variables mentioned. If you have questions about any of the constructed response questions, please work with your grade level team or your campus leadership team to find the best possible answer. If you have additional questions, you can always reach out to your CTO or to your curriculum coordinator, Monica Miller. Thank you.